Good morning, everyone. Shvua Tov, Agat Tavach. We are learning Mishnah Challah. We're in the second parak base, chapter 2. We're up to Mishnah Gimel, Mishnah 3. Now, before a person does a separation of challah from the dough, to make a bracha. Asher kedushan b'mitzvaysev tzivanu lefrosh challah. Some say lefrosh challah min isa. That's the bracha, lahafresh challah. And the halacha is that any time we make a bracha, if the private parts of our body, a man or a woman, are uncovered, you may not make a bracha then. So the Mishnah says the halacha in the following way: Ha'isha yosheves v'kaitza chalasa aruma. A woman could be sitting, literally in a sitting position, and she could separate challah while unclothed. Because she is able to cover herself. But not a man. So the point is that if a person is unclothed, they cannot make the bracha. If they can't make the bracha, then they shouldn't be separating challah. To separate challah in a state where you can make a bracha, one's not allowed to do. So therefore, the Mishnah is saying like this: if the woman would be unclothed and she was in a sitting position, and not just a sitting position, but a sitting position in which her private part is called her erva, in which her erva is she's pressing it into the ground. In that situation, it's completely covered. Since it's completely covered, she could make the bracha. That's what's necessary for her to be covered in order to make the bracha. And if she's in a sitting position and she's pressing against the ground, her erva, her private part, will be covered up completely, and there's no problem, and she can make a bracha. But a man is different, because since his private part protrudes out from his body, even in a sitting position, it will not be able to be covered. And therefore, he would not have this option. That's the first part of the Mishnah. Now the Mishnah goes into a different subject. And that is that we are not permitted to separate challah in a situation where the challah will become tameh. We're not allowed to make challah tameh. If challah becomes tameh, becomes ritually impure, as we say, it gets the contact either with one of the dead crawling animals, one of the 8 crawling animals, the carcass can make him impure in contact. A dead body comes to contact, they're the same roof. We're not allowed to let challah become tameh, which means that we're not either supposed to separate challah in a situation where it's going to be tameh. Now, therefore, and the reason is because if challah is tameh, the kohen may not eat it. It has to be burned. And therefore, we're not allowed to go ahead and separate challah in that situation. Okay? It's forbidden to separate challah where the challah is going to be tameh. But our Mishnah now is dealing with a situation where he doesn't have an option. He doesn't have an option because the option, if let's say a person is impure, and the person wants to separate challah, they want to eat bread, they have to separate challah before they can eat the bread. So the halacha is that you go to mikveh, and mikveh makes you pure. But what about a situation, which is going to be the situation in our Mishnah, is that there's no mikveh around. So he's impure, and the challah is going to be separated, and it's going to be impure. He's going to be touching it. So what happens in that situation? What do you do? Someone who is not able to make his dough in a state of purity. As we said, there's no mikveh around. So the Mishnah says, Ya'asena kabin, V'ya'asena betuma. Basically, make it into small portions and don't make it in a state of tumah. Meaning, as we said before, the amount of flour, there's an obligation to separate challah from the dough made from that flour is 1/4 kavin of flour. Kav is a measure from the times of the Mishnah. If you, let's say, use less flour, you're only making a small dough, you're using less flour than that, it's an obligation to separate challah. Now, this person clearly has enough flour to go ahead and make a large enough dough for challah to be separated from. But the Mishnah is now saying that there's 2 options here. One option is make the whole dough into a large dough, but it's going to be impure, and you're going to separate challah in a state of impurity, which typically you're not allowed to do. The other option, says the Mishnah, is make small doughs. Don't make a dough out of 1 1/4 kav. Make smaller doughs. Now, typically, you're not supposed to do that. Typically, you're not allowed to do that. If you know that you're going to go ahead and be baking enough for the separation of challah, and you say, no, I'm going to get out of it. I'm going to make small doughs, and I'm not going to combine them together. You're not allowed to do that. However, here the situation is, if I don't do it, I'm going to be separated in a state of tumah, which is going to make it tummy. It's going to have to be burned. So what's the better way to go? Make small doughs in a way that you're not obligated to separate challah from the dough, or make a regular size but separate in a state of tumah, because I have no mikvah to make myself pure. The Mishnah here says, make it kabin, meaning make each dough that you make, use a kav, meaning use less than a kav and a quarter, use less the amount of flour that would have the obligation to spread challah from it. That's the first opinion. Rabbi Akiva says, Yasena betuma. You should do it in a state of impurity, Yasena kav, don't make it into small doughs. Shekashem kashu kairi l'tahira, because the same way that he pronounces or he declares challah for something that is pure, kachu kairi l'tameya, he does the same thing for something that is impure. L'zu kairi challah b'shem. Regarding this one, he assigns the name of challah, and to this one he assigns the name of challah. This is a little bit superfluous, but it means the same way you designate by pure, you designate by impure. The same way that you assign it the name of challah when it's pure, you assign the name of challah when it's impure. But when you're dealing with small portions, they do not have the assignment of the name challah. The point of Rabbi Akiva is the following. The point of Rabbi Akiva is that I'm going to read to you from the way they explained it here. That is no challah separated from them, and it is more important to have a portion of one's dough sanctified for Hashem than to prevent challah from becoming tamei. Meaning, based on the verses of the Torah, that challah is called a portion for Hashem, truma l'Hashem, a portion for Hashem. That means separating challah is giving something over to Hashem. Yeah, we give it to the Kohen, but what we're really doing is it's a separation to Hashem. And how do we give it to? How does it go to Hashem? We give it to the Kohen. We go to the one who does a service in the Beis Hamikdash. But Rabbi Akiva says, being that it's called Truma l'Hashem, it's called a separation to Hashem when you separate challah. It is better to do that. It's more important to do that than to prevent it from being tamei. So Rabbi Akiva says that when your choice is to make it into small doughs or to make it tamei, you should make it tamei. Why? Because when you make it tamei, it may be tamei, but you're going to still separate challah. It'll still be considered challah. It may be impure, and you're going to have to burn it, but it is considered challah, which means you have made your separation for Hashem, and that is more important than preventing the challah from becoming tamei. So therefore, Rabbi Akiva says, better to use the regular amount of flour, have a regular size dough, and separate in a state of tumah. But the halacha does not follow Rabbi Akiva's opinion. It follows the first opinion, which is better to make it into small portions than to make it tamei. Okay. We are now in continuing with the laws of Lashon Harah from the Chofetz Chaim, chapter 8, Sif Yudal, paragraph 14. And there is no difference when it comes to accepting or believing Lashon Harah. Whether you hear it from others or from those who are close to you, your father, your mother, the members of your household. We find in the Tana de Belio. Tana de Belio is a form of brisa. It comes from the times of the Mishna, and these are the teachings of Eliyahu Hanavi, Elijah the prophet. But they come from the times of the Mishnah. Not incorporated in the Mishnah, but they come from the times of the Mishnah. If a person sees his parents speaking Lashon Harah, or other things that are not permissible to say, besides for the fact that he's not allowed to accept what they're saying, you have to stop them from doing it. You have to make sure that you do it in an honorable way. You don't say, you're speaking Lashon Harah. You say, isn't that Lashon Harah? You have to find the right, respectful way to do it. If you remain silent, then everybody is going to be punished for that. The Talmud says in Tractate Shabbos, one who is able to protest and stop the members of a household from doing something wrong and doesn't do so, he will be held responsible in the afterlife for what the members of his household did that he could have stopped and he didn't. A person should therefore be very careful and accustomed to pointing out these things in his household. But as the Chafetz Chaim says, do it in a soft tone. Don't do it harsh. Don't do it in a harsh tone, but don't, the Chafetz Chaim says, don't mince your words either. And that is to go ahead and to explain to them the serious punishment that comes to a person for this. When you do that, you can do that like you're spouting fire, or you can do that in trying to tell the person that you want to help them. Again, the point is to do it in the way that is going to be acceptable and pleasant. You have to, kind of know your crowd and know your audience to know what exactly to say, but something has to be said, and whatever it is that's going to be said should be said in a respectful, soft, and acceptable way. The Gadol Aschal Mission is there's tremendous reward for someone who, and so you have to lay out to members of your household the seriousness of speaking Lashon Harah in the sense of the punishment that can come for it and the great reward that comes from being careful with it. More important is that you should be careful yourself with how you speak. No one should ever hear anything bad from coming out of your mouth about someone else. If you yourself, that of the household himself, is transgressing this, besides for the actual prohibition, this is going to mess up things regarding this idea of trying to keep your household from speaking Lashon Harah. You won't have the ability to say anything to them anymore, because they're going to say, you don't do this, so why are you telling us to do it? Generally, the behavior of the members of the household when it comes to these matters will follow the head of the household himself. Therefore, one has to be very careful themselves in speaking Lashon Harah, and then it'll be good for him in the present and in the future. Have a wonderful day.